Sinaloa Cartel, international crime organization that is among the most powerful drug trafficking syndicates in the world. It's based in Culiacan, Sinaloa State, Mexico. Its origins can be traced back to the Guadalajara Cartel, one of Mexico's largest criminal syndicates in the early 1980s. However, after the cartel was involved in the 1985 torture and murder of a U.S. drug enforcement officer, U.S. and Mexican militaries cracked down on the syndicate, and by the end of the decade, the syndicate split into various groups. Sinaloa has long been involved in the illicit drug industry, being a producer of marijuana and poppy, and home to numerous drug traffickers including Hector Luis Palma Salazar and Joaquin Guzman Loera, or El Chapo, meaning short. Both were influential figures in the Guadalajara organization and became leaders of the Sinaloa Cartel. At that time, the power of the Colombian cartels was waning. Part of the reason was the death of various drug lords, notably Pablo Escobar, who died in 1993, and the U.S. crackdown on drug trafficking in the Caribbean. As Mexico gained popularity as a drug route, its criminal syndicates, particularly the Sinaloa Cartel, which profited from Guzman's innovative smuggling methods and heavy use of bribes through tunnels, grew in power. Despite being arrested in 1993 and sentenced to more than 20 years in prison, he remained a key figure in the cartel and, according to various reports, took full control of the organization in 1995. Guzman escaped from prison in 2001, possibly fearing extradition to the United States. When the Mexican government stepped up its efforts to arrest suspected drug lords, he escaped arrest while other cartel leaders were imprisoned, weakening the organization and spawning splinter groups. In the ensuing turf war, an unprecedented wave of violence swept across Mexico. Having acquired territory from both the Tijuana and Juarez cartels, Sinaloa cemented its position as one of the most powerful drug syndicates in the world. By the early 21st century, the cartels were especially dominant in the United States, although he was active in over 50 countries. The state of Sinaloa is reportedly responsible for most of the illegal drugs smuggled from Mexico to its northern neighbors, particularly marijuana, cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamine. And in 2015, U.S. officials ruled that Sinaloa is the state of nearly all of Mexico. Claimed to control the drug market in the states of annual sales, estimates range from $3 billion to $39 billion. While other organizations branched out into human trafficking and extortion, the Sinaloa cartel remained primarily focused on drugs. In 2014, Guzman was arrested in Mazatlan, Sinaloa, Mexico, but escaped from prison through a tunnel the following year. However, on January 8, 2016, Mexican authorities announced that Guzman had been arrested in Los Mochis, Sinaloa State. The following year, he was extradited to the United States. In 2019, he was convicted of drug trafficking, among other things. Ismael El Mayo Zambada Garcia, one of the original members of the cartel, and Guzman's sons, reportedly controlled the organization, which remained incredibly powerful. Officials have found that Sinaloa, like other cartels, have become increasingly involved in the distribution of fentanyl, contributing to the growing opioid crisis in the United States. Organized crime, a highly centralized corporate conglomerate created for the purpose of engaging in illicit activities. Such organizations commit crimes such as cargo theft, fraud, robbery, kidnapping for ransom, and demands for protection money. The main sources of income for these criminal syndicates are the provision of illegal but still in-demand goods and services, such as drugs, prostitution, loan sharks, and gambling. Historically, Europe and Asia have had international associations of smugglers, jewel thieves, and drug dealers, and Sicily and Japan have had centuries-old criminal gangs, but organized criminal activity has been particularly prevalent since the 20th century. It flourished in the United States in the 19th century, sometimes with organized crime. It has gained a better reputation compared to the cartels. A large increase in crime in the United States during Prohibition from 1920 to 1933 led to the creation of a national organization. After the 18th Amendment was repealed and smuggling, the practice of making, selling, or transporting liquor illegally, was abolished, criminal overlords turned to other activities and became more organized. The usual structure was hierarchical, with various families or syndicates in charge of operations in many of the major cities. Every family head had a boss who had life and death power over its members. In addition to illegal activities, mainly gambling and drug trafficking, which are the main sources of income for the syndicate, money-lending companies, or juice rackets in underworld parlance, charge exorbitant fees. They may also engage in nominally legitimate businesses such as rushing defaulting debtors through threats or violence. They also engage in labor coercion, including controlling union leadership so that union dues and other financial resources can be used for illegal business. All legally incorporated businesses such as real estate companies, dry cleaning companies, waste disposal companies, vending machine companies, etc., should be freed from competition through coercion, intimidation, and assassination if they are run by interested communities. Hijacking of trucks carrying valuable and easily disposable goods is also one of the favorite activities of organized crime. The ability of organized crime to thrive in the United States has traditionally depended on several factors. One factor was the intimidation and physical violence, including murder, used by the syndicate to prevent victims and witnesses, including members, from informing or testifying about its activities. Jury manipulation and bribery of judges were other tactics employed to thwart successful state prosecutions, a useful tool for ensuring that activities are tolerated. Drug cartel. Drug cartel, an illicit consortium of independent organizations formed to limit competition and control the production and distribution of illegal drugs. Drug cartels are extremely well-organized, well-financed, efficient, and ruthless. Since the 1980s, they have dominated the international narcotics trade. The U.S. war on drugs began under the administration of President Richard Nixon. Following his victory in the 1968 presidential election, Nixon declared that drug abuse was public enemy number one. Efforts to stop the flow of illegal drugs into the United States, which was the primary destination for most narcotics, became increasingly focused on curtailing foreign production of marijuana and heroin. It was during the 1970s, however, that a growing U.S. demand for cocaine led to the creation of the earliest drug cartels. Colombian drug cartels. The Medellin cartel, the first major drug cartel in Colombia, began in the mid-1970s when Colombian marijuana traffickers began smuggling small quantities of cocaine into the United States. As the trade grew, a diverse group of entrepreneurs became involved, ranging from well-respected individuals with backgrounds in ranching and horsing to petty criminals. The growing demand for cocaine soon prompted the expansion of the trade beyond small amounts tucked into suitcases. The cartel purchased private planes to carry its shipments, constructed more sophisticated drug laboratories, and even purchased a small island in the Caribbean for refueling its aircraft. Violence, lapses in organization, and competition from the emergent Cali cartel, centered in Cali, Colombia, fractured the Medellin cartel in the late 1980s and early 90s. Pablo Escobar, leader of the Medellin cartel, became one of the most wanted men in the world and was forced into hiding. In 1993, he was killed during a shootout with a special Colombian police task force, leading to the primacy of the Cali cartel. The Cali cartel had a more subtle style and sophisticated approach than the Medellin cartel. The members of the Cali cartel quickly reinvested their drug profits into legitimate businesses. They deliberately undermined the Medellin cartel as it became increasingly unpopular and violent. The Cali cartel went so far as to help Colombian police and the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency, or DEA, to track down Escobar. Many leaders of the Cali cartel were arrested in the 1990s, and by the next decade, the organization had largely disbanded. While other cartels in Colombia filled the void, their power failed to match that of their predecessors. Mexican drug cartels. In the 1960s and early 70s, Mexico was known primarily as a supplier of marijuana. However, as U.S. efforts in Colombia slowed the flow of drugs from South America, Mexico emerged as a source of cocaine. The Tijuana cartel, created by members of the Ariana Felix family, especially the brothers Ramon and Benjamin, was founded in the late 1980s and became one of the most powerful cartels in Mexico, responsible for shipping hundreds of millions of dollars worth of cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamine into the United States. However, Tijuana faced fierce and often violent competition from other drug organizations, notably the Juarez, Gulf, and Sinaloa cartels. Under the leadership of Joaquin Guzman Loera, commonly known as El Chapo or Shorty, the Sinaloa cartel emerged as one of the world's most powerful drug cartels in the early 21st century. According to various reports, at the time it accounted for the majority of illegal drugs in the United States. The Sinaloa cartel amassed power through murder, bribes, and innovative smuggling techniques, notably the use of tunnels. In the early 2000s, the Mexican government, aided by U.S. officials, intensified its efforts to crack down on cartels, imprisoning numerous leaders. The resulting turf battles sparked unprecedented violence in Mexico. Other cartels. Organized crime groups in Asia, Africa, Italy, and the former Soviet Union have also been linked to the sale and production of illegal narcotics. Israeli, Russian, and West European drug traffickers are primarily responsible for the sale and distribution of ecstasy. Criminal groups in Southeast and Southwestern Asia use New York City as a hub to move heroin into the United States. The sale and distribution of marijuana from Southeast Asia is generally limited to the West Coast, but marijuana also enters the United States from Canada. If you enjoyed the video, like and share with your friends. Also, subscribe and turn on post notifications so you don't miss out on other juicy stories.